Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. What I'm going to do is just do a briefing about hydrotherapy. And this is the most important thing for you to realize when I get to the blood vessel. So as you know, the conference started with, right arm of the gospel is the medical missionary work. Now I love this saying that's in Desire of Ages, where it says, all who will go to work trusting not in what they themselves can do, but in what God can do for them and through them, will certainly realize the fulfillment of his promise. Greater works than these shall he do, he declares, because I go unto my Father. That is a mission statement that we all need to have, and that is what will motivate us to realize that we are going to work for God and he is using us. And then I have health is the force that moves humanity, and it really is, because when we don't have health, we don't move. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, and that goes across the board for almost anything, but especially in the health world. People are dying for lack of knowledge. When possible, in the attempt at physical healing, natural remedies are the preferred agent. Natural remedy that we need to be doing. The natural remedies are many things, and hydrotherapy, massage, and aloe vera, and we talked about clay and the kitchen cabinet that we're going to talk about, garlic, salt, cayenne, pepper, cabbage, carrots, marigold flowers, plantain, comfrey. You will be amazed at the things that you can just run out your door and get and do in an emergency. And so we're going to try to cover as much of that as we can tomorrow. And so the nice thing about natural remedies, just like that nurse said to me the other day walking, they're cheap, they're ready available if you know about them. They're simple, they're no great education, and no great education necessary. Treat the cause, not the symptoms, and that's what we need to do. We need, and it takes longer, and that's what you need to know. We can treat a symptom, and boy, you can get results like 1, 2, 3. But when we treat the cause, which is what's going on internally, then that takes a while for nature to heal from the inside out. And people quit and don't do it because it doesn't go fast enough. We're all used to the quick, the quick fix in everything. And so you need to know when you're doing natural remedies, it's going to go slower, but when you get to the end of the healing process, you're healed. You don't now have to get over the drugs. And so that's the positive side of it. Natural means used in accordance with God's will, and it brings truly supernatural results. I've seen some things happen that just astounded me. I know God said it'll do it, and I know how it works, but sometimes when it happens, it almost knocks you off your feet. We know that hydrotherapy goes way back to the Babylonian era, but we're not going to talk about that. John Wesley used to do it. And basically, I'm going to try to make it so simple. I'm not getting into a great big scientific thing because you wouldn't get it. You go right over your head. So I try to do everything and bring it down on everyone's level, make it real simple so that you can understand it and hopefully you can remember it. Hydro means water, and therapy is what you do, and it comes in 3 forms, and that's water, ice, and steam. And you can use that in all various ways for all kinds of healing. Now, you will see tonight we're going to do ice, and we're going to use water. We're not going to use steam, but we're going to use some hot water. And you will see how well it works. Steam, we usually do that just like in steam cabinets type of thing. And that's for real good detox when we do that. And hydrotherapy is the most powerful, listen to this, non-poisonous means of quickly moving the nourishing, healing blood into and out of the diseased area. That's the crux of what we're doing when we're doing hydrotherapy. When we're using hot and then we're using cold, we're moving blood. Now this is the most important slide that I have up here. This applies to any hydrotherapy treatment I'm doing, and this you must learn and keep in your mind so that you can understand, and you can, when you do a treatment, you teach it. You teach this to everybody that you do any kind of treatment on, because once they understand this, then they'll understand the healing process that's going to take place in their body. So this down here is a blood vessel. Now this is the normal. Now, you know, it's not a real blood vessel, it's an animated, but this right here would be the size of a normal blood vessel. What it's telling you up here is heat causes dilation, which is what? Your blood vessel dilates, now naturally not this big, but, you know, just to give you an example of it, to the area that it is applied to, and it will dilate it as much as 40%, you know? And so it pulls, what it does is it pulls deep congestion from within to the surface. Now, back in 1918, when that terrible flu that, you know, killed millions of people the world over, there was a little town in Pennsylvania that nobody died. And they did fomentations. There was a doctor and a nurse there, and they did fomentations on everybody, and everybody lived that had it. And I think he might have been an Adventist, but I'm not sure about that. But that's the reason why, is because he did the hot and cold fomentations on the chest, and it pulled that congestion out of their bodies, and they healed. Where everybody else, they just had given them water, they were laying around, they didn't know what to do for them, they were trying medications, but they died like flies. There wasn't a family that somebody didn't die in. It was that bad back in those days. So what this is saying here, it thereby, when it pulls it out, I'll just stand up here because I read it, I get too mixed up. When it pulls the congestion to the surface, it also is pulling good nutrition into that area at the same time. So now you put the ice on, and what that happens is that it takes the impurities, and it puts it back through the system, and it goes through the liver, the lungs, and the kidneys, and it cleans it up. Isn't that the most amazing thing when you think about it? And so now you do this process over and over again. You put the heat back on, pull the congestion, the disease congestion particles up to the surface, and now you apply the cold. Now you do 3 minutes hot approximately. Sometimes in certain treatments I've done 5 minutes, and you do no more than 30 seconds of cold. That's all it takes, because the skin it reacts to it, and it tells the body what to do, and we'll see that in a few minutes. So it relieves all internal congestion, it's saying right here, of the organs and surrounding tissues, dramatically increases the fighting white blood cells and nutrients and oxygen in the area. Because when the blood moves into the area, the oxygen molecule is right on it. And it's bringing nutrition with it. So now just think this in your mind. We put heat on, and we're going to do it with the sinus treatment tonight. Same process, we're just doing it in different ways. We're even going to do it with the foot bath. But what happens is, now we've kicked up the white blood cells. They're fighting your neutrophils, your lymphocytes, all those kind of things, so that it fights the infection or whatever is going on in your body. And it kicks it up high. Every time you do it, it goes up higher and it goes up higher. And so now you got the front line there of all your white blood cells fighting for you. You have oxygen in the area, and you have blood that is now carrying the nutrition into the area. And now it's taken the bad toxic blood back through the kidneys, the liver, and the lung, cleaning it up. I mean, if that's not the most amazing thing, it just, every time I tell it, I just am amazed how this works in the body, how God has set that up so we cleaning up our own act by just doing the hot and cold. And so you, just like that patient that said to me, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. You're telling me this water's going to help me? Then that's when I started teaching. I never, ever do a hydrotherapy treatment that I don't teach this, because they need to know, because what happens up here happens down there. If you don't believe in it, you'll probably not get very good results at all. You might get a little bit, but you're not going to get the good results when you know it. So when I teach this, I say to them, and I'll say to you right now, can you not get well? If this process is taking place by doing hydrotherapy, are you going to get well?
Yes.
I mean, you have to get well. How can you not get well? Because your body's cleaning up what's in there. It's bringing nutrition and white blood cells to fight for your the condition, and it's bringing oxygen into the area. That's another thing you might want to know. When you have pain, pain is an indication that you have low oxygen in that area. And so that's why massage works good, that's why hydrotherapy works good, and various other things that you can do for pain. But that's what's telling you. For instance, you know, I had broke my pelvis, so I had a really bad problem. And when I don't do therapy on myself, and I do certain types of exercises, my back kills me. I get down on the floor and I do those physical therapy type of exercises for myself. I am good to go. The pain goes because why? You've got to take time for yourself, and I'm speaking to the choir right here. I'm speaking because it's hard sometimes to do that. So here's the skin. Now, our skin is not that thick. I'm talking about this as a piece of it. But it's amazing what's in this little piece of skin if you pull it up. You know, it's just absolutely amazing. You can see here are some of the arteries, these blue ones, that's the nerves, then there's the veins, here's a layer of fat. You know, here's the fat that will be making, the cholesterol will make the vitamin D3 when the sun hits the skin. Here's your hair follicles, this is a hair follicle with it coming up. All that network is in this piece of skin that you have here. This is, and I called it, the skin is the keyboard of hydrotherapy. You know how when you play a piano, the music isn't coming here. The music's coming from inside where it's hitting. You know, so the skin is kind of like that. As if you read this here, it says, it is through the skin that most treatments are carried out. This is possible because of the connection it has to all parts of the body. As soon as you touch heat on your body, wherever it's at, it affects right underneath. Immediately there's a reaction that takes place. And it is through the arteries, the veins, and the nerves. And it is through this connection that the internal organs can be stimulated, sedated, and relieved of waste as a requirement may be. Just by putting a fomentation across the abdominal area will affect the organs on the inside. Immediately it will do that. And that's just amazing. I remember one time I had a woman, and she had quite a good size abdominal, and I thought, how am I going to affect this situation with this big stomach? You know, how is this? I called my teacher up at that time, and I asked her about it. I was doing chronic pain work with people, and she said, Valerie, just do it and do the top of her stomach and just work on her, and it'll affect everything underneath, and she'll get the results. And she did. She got astounding results, and I was amazed by that because of just what we read. Why? Because of, what's it telling you the skin is? The largest organ, and it is an organ. We don't think that way about skin, but it is an organ. And it's a specialized organ to which all parts of the body directly or indirectly are connected to maintain their function. Isn't that something to think about? And then it says it is also one of the most sensitive. And pressure, heat, cold are perceived through the skin and acted upon by the body almost without even being aware of it. And just like in our muscles, we have proprioceptors that tell the brain where your arm is. If it's back here, you can wiggle your fingers, and you don't have to look to see that your hand's back there wiggling the fingers. It's already told the brain. You know, when you really study anatomy and physiology, you're amazed at how God created this body and how it works. I can remember doing autopsies with Dr. Agatha, and she was always a teacher. Everything we did, she was teaching me through the autopsy. And one time she picked up this intestines, held them up like this, and she said, look at this, Valerie, it looks like a chrysanthemum. And I looked at it and I said, yeah, I guess it does, you know. But anyway, she would teach, and she was always marveled at how the eye was made, how God created the eye and created the ear. And when you study it, you are just as amazed. You know that there's a God in heaven. And she was an atheist. And she said, how in the world, her and her husband, how in the world did I go through medical school and study all this and didn't realize there had to be a creator? You know? But when she finally accepted Christianity, then she saw the bigger picture. But you can see how stumped people can be that are atheists. They just don't see God in anything because you don't have God in your life and the Holy Spirit to be able to tell you. But the body is marvelously made. Give it the opportunity and it will begin to heal itself. But we have to do those 8 laws of health. And people don't like to hear that word law, but they are physical laws that God has created within us, and we need to do, if we cooperate with those. Dr. Agatha told me more than once, she said, Valerie, most of the diseases out there we would not have to deal with if we got everybody to do the 8 laws of health. But people won't do them, or they'll do 2 or 3 of them. And I have patients, they call me back up and say, I'm still having problems with this and that. And so I say, okay, well, let's go over the laws of health. That's what I do. And I go over and find out, oh, well, they're not drinking their water. No, they're not going for their walks. And those are the 2 things, like I said, that they hate. And so I said, well, it's no need to call me up. I'm not going to tell you anything else, but go back and start drinking your water and go out there walking, and then maybe things will start to work. You can't cheat on the 8 laws of health, because they are just as binding as the laws of our land. If you disobey, you go to jail or whatever else it may be. So you must do it and really pray for this. Take it in consideration, because you are serving the majesty of heaven, and he wants you to be in the very best of health. And so he's telling you, look, these are the things you need to do so you can be healthy, so I can use you to reach others. But and you know what we neglect? We neglect ourselves the most. And so we need to realize that we're priority too. If we fail, we can't help anybody else. So we need to look at life. If you're too busy to take care of yourself, then you're doing things God never gave you to do. So remember that. Too busy to do these things for yourself and to spend time with God, then you're doing stuff God never gave you. So you need to go through your life and organize it so that you're taking care of yourself, you're obeying those laws, and you will be amazed when you start obeying those laws that God will work for you. You know, like when you pay tithe, people say, well, I just can't do it. I don't have the money. I'll go broke. And then you finally get them to pay the tithe. When they pay the tithe, they go, that's so amazing. I can pay all my bills, and sometimes I even have money left over. That's how it is with the laws of health. You start doing it, and then all of a sudden your body starts to perk up, and you're obeying, and you're amazed at the things that happens. And guess what? All that extra stuff you thought you had to do, God takes care of it for you, just like he does with the tithe. So, you know, remember that principle and put it into your life. And I'm really speaking to Valerie at this time, too. So what I'm going to do is go back, because I want to ask you, this is the normal blood vessel. Tell me what that heat's going to do. When we put heat anywhere, your face in the water, your feet in the water, the foaming table, what's it going to do? It's going to dilate, and then what's it going to do? It's going to, what's it going to bring to the surface? Right, it's going to bring all the impurities, toxins, whatever it needs to bring to the surface, and following behind it, what's coming up? New blood with nutrition in it, and it has oxygen in it. It's coming right up behind it, and so about that time is when we leave it on 3 to 5 minutes, and that process takes place in the body. So you're like this. Now we put the cold on there. Immediate, because of the skin, you have the immediate reaction. So then what happens to the blood? It goes back down through 3 organs. That's your cleansing organs in your body. Your liver, your lungs, and your kidneys. And it cleans up. Isn't that amazing? It cleans up all those toxins, all that, you could say, debris in your body. And then you put the heat back on. Now tell me again, what happens? It dilates, and it brings all that all the impurities to the surface, and right behind it is pulling up blood with good nutrition and oxygen in it. You know, now we put the coat on, and what happens? It constricts it. It constricts it. It's called vasoconstriction. And what happens to it? Constricts the blood. It squeezes the blood loaded with disease and waste to the internal or cleansing organs. You have to remember, that's what it's doing. Isn't that amazing? God, we have our own cleansing system right within the body. But we have to follow the laws of health. And then when we come down with sickness, sickness is different than disease. So when we come down with a sickness and we do these things, we get well because we're following the guidelines. And so if you do this, are you going to get over the flu or pneumonia or congestion of one kind or another? Yes, you're going to get well. Now, it may take some people 5 rounds of it and somebody else 3 rounds, you know, of doing these. Now, sometimes, and I've seen it happen, just 2 treatments and they're getting well enough that I don't see symptoms anymore. But most of the time when you're sick like this, because we're so broken down, it may take you 3 to 5 days of doing these treatments a couple times a day. You know, whichever treatment it is you're going to do. Sometimes we're going to do the sinus treatment tonight. It's the most amazing treatment there is. It is our favorite treatment, one of our favorite treatments at Uchee Pines, because we can just clean out the head in so fast. And so I have somebody that's going to come up here. But, yeah, you can come up. I guess your hair's going to get wet. I have the pins. I forgot my, oh, you got something. Good. Oh. Anyway, this treatment, there's a number of things you can take. Like you can get a little bit of horseradish and stick it in your mouth. And I want to tell you what, if your head is clogged up and you can't breathe, you put a little bit of horseradish on your tongue, and in minutes your whole head will open up, you know, and your eyes will water, and you might want to, you know, scream a little bit. But it'll open it up, and then if you swallow it, it'll clean the mucus in the throat. Just horseradish will do that. But now what we want to do in this treatment is we want to clean out the sinuses. I remember Helene and I, we got a patient that came in. We didn't know about using a snorkel. And when we found out about snorkels, we thought, oh, God, this is the most wonderful thing, because we used to give them a straw or we'd tilt the pan a little bit so they could breathe, because we want their face in that water 3 minutes, you know. And so when we found out, I don't know how I come up with it. Somehow we came up with getting a snorkel, and I don't know how all that happened, but we just thought we had hit the home run, let me tell you, with that snorkel, because it does a wonderful treatment. And this woman was so sick with sinuses, we were doing it for 45 minutes, and she would not let us stop. It just poured out of her head. I mean, green, yellow, you name it. She had such an infection. So we did 45 minutes, and she only wanted a little break, and she wanted us to go back and do it again. And she came for about 3 or 4 days in a row, and we did this treatment. We cleared her head completely up. I mean, she said, I've never breathed in my life like I'm breathing now. And we've never seen it not work. So what it's going to be, I'm going to start her, and then we're going to move her over there, and then Susan's going to finish this treatment. And so we're going to do 3 minutes. Now this is clean, and you know how to breathe through it? And I do have some of these. Unless you go to a snorkel shop and you're going to pay $30, $40 for it, I have these for $5. I ordered them from some company because we used to go to the dollar store and get them, and you can't do it anymore. And I go to the toy store, and I couldn't find them. I could find goggles, but I couldn't find snorkels. So I called a company, and I was able to get them, and we use them at Uchee, too. So we're going to put her face, and we have a timer here, 3 minutes. You can come over. Let me see where we're at. All right. So now what she's going to do, she's going to go down 3 minutes in the water. Now, don't breathe through your nose. You're just going to breathe through your mouth. And this makes it so easy. Go ahead. As much as you can get in there. Now, this is good. In Romania, Helene and I went over there. We were teaching one of the last classes, and we couldn't get nobody put their face in the water. And I thought, well, how are we going to do this class? They're afraid of putting their face in the water. Finally, we got a patient that was really sick with sinus, and we brought her down into the lab where we were working and teaching, and we did that patient, and oh, she got such good results. And after that, everybody said, okay, I'll do it, and finally we were able to teach the class, and after that, they just use it all the time too, because it's so marvelous. It unclogs people right away, they feel better right away. You know, the neti pot probably works good, but this, we think it's better, I mean. But you know what? Again, it's different strokes for different folks. You know, what works for you may not work for you. There's even the water pick, you know, that used to, it has little things on. You can squirt the water between your teeth and clean them up. They have a sinus apparatus for it, and so you can fill it up with water, put a little bit of saline. I meant to put some saline in it, but I didn't have any, so I forgot it. But you can put saline in there, and it helps to clean out the sinuses. And you can use the water pick. The other thing is this is hot water, as hot as she can stand it. You know, the hotter it is, the more it opens up everything. Because what does heat do? What do we talk about heat? What does it do? It dilates. Now the sinuses, you have a big sinus group in back of the nasal passages. You have them across your cheekbones and then up through here and across your head. You have quite a bit of sinuses, quite frankly. And so many people have sinus problems, you know, and most of the time it's just from the way you eat. And especially a lot of sugar and sweets and stuff like that gives it. And of course, we're coming into the season now for all kinds of, congestions and sinus problems. Okay. All righty. Now, we have a cloth like this. You can come up. Now, sometimes, we just quickly do this and bring her right over here quick. Don't wait no time. You don't have to have the snorkel for this. You can just dunk down, just real quick like this. All right, now come up. Here you go. Now wait a minute. Get the Kleenex and then see if you need to blow.
I'm sure.
I got these two things in the wrong place. Here you go.
Oh, that.
Even people that just kind of have stuffy heads, not necessarily sinus treatments, and they do this treatment, they'll always say, oh my head feels like it just opened up, and it feels so good to them to do this. Pardon me? Yes. You won't get a result if it's not hot. In fact, sometimes, this is nice, this is pretty good. Sometimes we dip out and then we add more. Now, I'll tell you how I do this at home. I'm not going to haul water and do stuff like this. It's too much work. I figure out every way I can do these treatments real quick and easy and with the least work. I go to the kitchen sink and I set a pot in the bottom of the sink and I set the hot one on top of that. And then up on the counter, I have my ice water. And so I can keep adding the hot water to this while it's in the sink, and I don't have a mess. You see? So then I go back and forth, and it's all there at the sink, and I don't have to haul water, and I don't have to empty. You can splash over and go right down, as I need it. I can dump out a little bit, and then just keep adding the hot water. So it makes it real simple. And if you do something like this, and let's say you got to do it 2 or 3 times a day, well, that's the best place to do it. You know why? Because you'll go back there and do it. If you got to take these things out and set them on the table and then go haul water, because you're going to have to haul the water. You're not going to carry this big thing from the sink to the table. You're going to have to haul water. And how many times do you think you're going to do that day? Yeah, and you won't do it again. You'll say, forget this, I'll take Advil or whatever it is out there. And so, but to make it so that it's easy for you is put it in a sink. Do you remember what I said? Put anything, a pot, or bowl down there that can lift this higher, because the sink is deeper, so you don't want to go way down in. You just want to go, then the counter is here, so you put the cold here, so then you can just go like this and over there and back and forth. It makes it easy, and you leave it there for the day, and you just go back and you can do how many treatments that you want to do. You know, then at the end of the day, if you've done your last treatment, then you can empty it out and do your dishes or whatever else that you want to do. Set it all up the next day, and I guarantee you, if you do it, you'll go back there and you'll do the treatment, because it's not any mess. It's not taking a lot of mess and energy and time and hauling, because I tell you, when I tried that foot bath on myself, and I'm going to show you that, I just said, this is it. I'm not going to do this. I was already sick, and I had to haul this water. I said, this is insane. So I started praying and asking God, how can I make this simple for people to practically do? And that they will do the treatments. I've had them come up to me in seminars that have been to many seminars, and they would say to me, that's the reason I never did these treatments. Even though some of them were Wildwood students and different places they learned and studied, they said, because it was so much work. And especially if you're sick, well, it's not wrong yet. It's just getting ready to. In fact, you can probably dip out now, and then we can move it quick. Just come over if you want and just go right in it. You can just do that. Let me move this. Move that one over. Okay.
I think that's 30 seconds.
Here you go. Even if she doesn't have a bad sinus, she'll still feel her head better. Oh, you do? Okay. And you know, sometimes these treatments, depending how clogged it is in the upper sinuses and in the back part of it, it may take several treatments to loosen all that up, you know, and then she'll start really opening up and pouring out. Sometimes it just pours out their nose after just a few treatments. Okay, before we go to the ice massage, now here is the foot bath. I learned the best by seeing. So I said, okay, now how am I going to do this one? So I went to Lowe's and I got some wash machine boxes, and I need to remake it. I beat this thing up so much. And then, as you can see, I got a faucet there, and I got my spigots, and I made this bathtub. Now, naturally, the bathtub has another side on it. But let's say you've got a really bad headache, and you feel bad. And could be upper congestion, because what I'm going to do with her can pull congestion from all the way down in the body. So if she has a bad headache, you can have an ice bag and you fill it with ice, and you can put it in it, like sew up a little towel or hand towel or something like that, and then you just set it on the top of her head, you know, like this. And this chair is so old, but I can't get rid of it. If it could talk, it'd tell you so many stories. It's done so many treatments over the last 20, 25. If anything happens to this chair, I don't know what I'll do, because I don't know if they even make them like this anymore. It looks so bad, but it's a good chair. You know why? You can lay back, you can scoot down a little bit in it, and you can put your arms, and you can just lay there real comfortable. So now I have pretend I filled this up with hot water. And so now I just have her put her feet in it, and then she could just lay there, put the time, yeah. And if it's just for a headache, she just has to stay there until the headache goes away. Now, what do you think happens? We have heat on the feet. What's happening? It's dilating here. We got cold on the head. And what's it doing? Constricting. And it's drawing the blood away from the head on down. And most of the time, within 20 minutes or less, the headache goes. And that is just absolutely wonderful. Okay, now, if you have menstrual cramps, in fact, I saw this one young girl at UCHI when I was down there the last time, I guess it was, doing the seminar, and she was sort of laying over on the table in the tea room, and I thought, well, something's wrong. I better go ask her. I did, and she told me that she had terrible cramps, and she just couldn't hardly walk around. And she was drinking. She was in there making a tea. I said, honey, you don't need a tea. You just need hydrotherapy. Let me take you to your room. So I took her to her room, and I got a bucket. I put it in the bathtub. I had her sit on the edge of the bathtub because our bathtubs are about that wide. And we filled it up with hot water. I said, you sit here till they go away. She told me in about 10 minutes it was gone. On her, I saw her about a half hour later, just a smiling and a beaming. She said, oh, that was the most wonderful thing I ever did. I said, just remember, you do that all the time for it if you have that problem. And I've never seen it not work, but I'm not saying that it doesn't, but for me and the people that I've told and helped, it has always worked consistently. Now, you can do this treatment. Let's say you really are congested. Well, that's when you'd have the sheet and the blanket, and I wasn't going to really go through that because of the time factor, but you can get in there and wrap yourself up good. Now, the biggest thing when you're doing hydrotherapy, you want to always be sure that you're not chilled to start with, and you want to hydrate well. You will not get a good effect doing any hydro treatment if you're not sufficiently hydrated, so that you want to make sure you're drinking water, a couple glasses of water, drinking good all day for that matter until you take your treatment, but making sure you're well hydrated. And then if, like some bathrooms, sometimes the toilet's right here, or if not, you can turn the trash can upside down and you have yourself a glass of water right there. Or I take a quart jar is what I do. And then you can drink that the whole time you're doing the hydro, and if you do that, you get a tremendously better reaction. If you're dehydrated, you're not going to get much reaction at all. And many times I discover people that are doing the treatment saying, well, it didn't work for me. I find out they never hydrated themselves. And that's what I find happen. So you can sweat out. You can wrap yourself in a sheet first and then the blanket over top, and then you can sit in here with the heat, and you got to always have ice on the head when you're going to sweat out. The same way when we do fever treatments. Why? You never want to get the brain hot. So if you get the brain too hot, then you have a tendency to have the worst headache you ever had in your life, and it could last the rest of the day. It can be that bad. And you just don't want it. So the way we do that is we just keep the brain nice and cool, with the ice bag on the top. And so now I'm going to do the contrast. Okay, so you need to stand up. Now what we would do with this, if we're just doing headache and menstrual cramps, she can just get out of that, wipe her feet off. If she's doing a sweat out, then she needs to pour some cold water. And that's the other nice thing. You can just sit in here. You can just push this thing out of the way, stick your feet under, and turn the cold on your feet. I mean, how easy can it get? You know what I'm saying? How easy can it get? Everything is in there. And guess what? If you have your mess in the bathtub, you'll go back there again and you'll do another treatment because it's all there. You don't have to haul anything. You don't have to clean anything up. It's all right there. And that makes it so easy for you. And so, and that's the best way. You learn it well for yourself, and then you teach it to anybody you help. Don't just tell them to go stick their feet in hot water and get in the bathtub. You go through this. You always teach this. And you have this in your book. You teach what happens in the body, because you know what? When you know how something is going to work and you know you have the possibility of getting well, what are you going to do? You're going to do it. Chances are you're going to do it. And so that's why you have to educate, educate, educate. And that means the people that are your patient or your clients, the people that you're working on, you want them educated, because then we're reduplicating ourselves. You know what I'm saying? You're helping them, they'll help somebody else. You never know how far and wide that will go as a result of it. So now, this is the next best treatment I know of. Let's say you have tendinitis in your ankles, or even plantar fasciitis, or you've got arthritic problems in your ankles, and you've got whatever the foot problems may be, and the pain. So now you fill up one here, like this, You fill this one up with cold water and you put ice in it. And then you move this one over here because you want this one to stay under the hot. You know, you want this under, and you're going to start with heat. So maybe you move this chair over a little bit. So what you're going to see her doing, you can't pick it up a little bit. She's going to put her feet in the hot water for how long? Approximately 3 minutes or 5, depending how bad it's hurting. You can go to 5 minutes easily. And then you take them out and you go ahead and dunk them in the cold for 30 seconds. You come back over and you do 3 to 5. Sometimes I've done it when I've had some problems, back and forth. And I'm telling you what, your feet can just hurt you from standing on them all day, and they're aching. You do this treatment, oh, you're going to think you're a new person when you get out of it. I mean, the pain goes away. Why did the pain go away? What happened? It dilated. What did it bring with it in the pain area? Oxygen, because now when there's pain, there's what? Lack of oxygen when you have pain. So now you're in this, and it's moving the blood in again, just in this treatment. It's moving the blood in. It's oxygenating the painful area. I mean, that is just absolutely astounding. And it increases the circulation. She's not in the tub in this treatment. She's on the outside of the tub. And guess what? You can leave that in there all day and come back and do it 2-3 times a day if you want. Because, again, the mess is there. You just keep adding the hot water. Usually the cold, if you have enough ice in there, it'll last through the whole treatment. You know, so all the mess is there. I just love it. You know, I sometimes will pick up the hot one and just dump out a little bit and then turn the faucet on. So you will do the treatment over and over again. And especially if you're having a problem. But if your feet are aching from working on them all day long, there's nothing like this treatment. Because it'll take the pain right out. You'll get up and you'll think you're a new person. You'll be able to finish the housework, whatever you want to do, because it works that well. Okay, you're done. Thank you. So I'm going to show you another treatment. Who is the one who has the shoulder? Oh dear, maybe I can do. No, she has the frozen shoulder, I think. So, I wish I could do all of you. Come over here a minute. It's this shoulder, right?
Yeah, it's actually like right here.
Maybe pull that out. Just grab it. Yeah, you need to sit like this. Now she can't show you how your arm is. Let's see.
Like this arm is no problem. This one can only get up to there and it hurts. Yeah, but when I'm standing like this, no problem. But when I move it, or this, how this one can go all the way back.
So what we're going to...
Yeah, that's no problem. This one can, but it's limited. It's only like there. Otherwise, it's...
Now what you do, you can buy ice cups. I have them at home that I use, but we use styrofoam for years, so somebody invented this a couple years ago. So you fill a styrofoam cup, and then after it's frozen, it takes about 24 hours to freeze these, so you can't just freeze it and then think you got it in the next few hours. So you just peel the bottom off, like here, like so. And listen, I want to tell you one other really important thing to always remember. We are cooperating with God in doing these treatments, and we can't leave God out of it. So every treatment you do, you pray. And you ask the Lord to enter in and bless it, because you do these things and people get well, and guess who starts taking the glory? Look at all these things that I do. So you want them to know who you're working on, and you want to realize that it is God that ultimately heals. you know. And so, but he's taught us how to use these simple remedies. Okay, so now, you know, at first this is not an easy thing for her, but we're going to start rolling it around like this. And you can do a figure 8, and she'll go through where it's really cold, and it can hurt, be painful to her, but we just keep talking them into it as it gets more. And then you take a towel like this, and just pat it off, and just keep going around like this, and doing the figure 8s. If you want, or just whatever. They have different ways that some people say, well, do it and come off the skin like this, but I've always stayed right on the skin. And sometimes I do the figure 8. It's easier, you know, on the back or somewhere like that to do that. But anyway. And so then you get to the place where it's now, is it stinging yet?
It is.
Yeah, and then it'll sting. And we're trying to get it to where it freezes. And so it's painful, it stings. Let me see, it's 4 things. I'm trying to remember what the next one is. And, well, no, that's the last stage. It'll get numb, and then they're really happy. But while it goes through the painful and the sting, and where it's so cold, you know, that's, you have to talk them through it. Just stay in there, because pretty soon it'll be numb. Now, we've done, at Uchee Pines, we've done, Dr. Agatha, besides being a pathologist, and we delivered a lot of babies, and she worked with heart, she loved to do surgery. So anytime she could cut, she would do it. So anybody if she saw you had like a little mole somewhere, she'll say, why don't you come on back to the office? You know, she just loved to do that. And so you know how we did the surgeries? We did this. We got them to numb, and she could cut right in. They never felt anything. So help me. We could stitch them up by getting them good and cold. We even did one major surgery one time. I mean, I was scared to death on that one. But anyway, it all worked. In China, or maybe it's Russia, in the Siberian area, I think it is. It was either China, but it might have been China or Siberia, Russia, where they would do major surgeries because they didn't have anesthesia. So they would freeze the people down to wherever they were going to do it, and they could do unbelievable surgeries just freezing them, you know? I mean, Well, because they would pack them in. They would do this kind of thing, but they would also, whatever the limb was or whatever they would pack it with ice as well. Yep. I think there was a doctor that was in prison, and I think he's the one that started developing that for them because they didn't have anesthesia, and so he started, he was a surgeon, and he was in prison, you know, because in Russia they could put you in prison for anything. And I tell you, it was just terrible over there, and I worked over there for some time. It was right after communism fell, and it was still very communistic. You could just cut it in the air. It was so communistic. And it's still very scary, very frightening. They always had somebody in that building that you were in that would guard, watching you, listening. You know, they would listen on the phone. And you just never knew. I got caught in the coup over there, and it's only God saved my life and got me out of Russia alive. Because the coup, I'm right downtown, just got into Russia, and I thought I heard guns, but I thought it's my imagination, you know, and it wasn't my imagination. And anyway, just as we got from one place to the next, they were just shooting the place up. It was the last coup Russia ever had, and they were going to take over the Kremlin that night, and they were going to kill. I can't remember who was in charge. I can't remember who it was. But anyway, why was I telling you that? It doesn't have anything to do with hydrotherapy.
It's called distraction.
Huh?
Distraction. No,
Oh, yeah, distract her. And you know what? I do that. I tell stories and whatever it takes to keep her distract or keep them to stick with the treatment, because some of them will just say, oh, I can't take it. Take this thing off. I got to quit. Tell me when you start feeling any kind of numbness. It's not yet, huh?
It's stinging.
Still stinging.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I could get Susan up here if you, where'd she go? I could get her to keep doing this, and I'll show you one other marvelous little treatment. Okay, we're just going to pull you can stand up and move the chair back. Where do you want to do? You want to do that one? Yeah. That'll be. This treatment it's a compress, but we've seen marvelous things happen with this. It's a foot compress, just like we did the foot bath, but it's a compress. It does the same thing. It'll draw congestion. It'll help with cramps, headaches, sinus type of thing. And what you do is you have 2 thin socks. You put it in good cold water. I even add ice to it. I make it so cold. In fact, if it's in my house, I stick it in the freezer for a few minutes, so it's really cold. And then you have to move very fast, and I have these plastic bags, and so I quickly get it on the feet like this. Take it out of the freezer, get it on the feet like this, put it in this plastic bag, and then I have wool socks, and I put it on a wool sock just this fast as you can do it. And so the same principle happens, because now I'm starting with cold, and what's it doing? It's constricting in the beginning, but then what's it doing? Slowly heating up. And then it will heat it up, and it'll draw blood from wherever it needs to do. Well, we had a big session where there was a group of nutritionists that were graduating from a nutrition school in British Columbia, and it was 20 of them, and they wanted, for the graduation, they wanted to come to Uchee Pines for 2 weeks for us to give them all the things and natural remedies and teach them in hydrotherapy. And so we knew that the flights they were taking, for the cheapest flights to get to us, they were going to be in air and waiting from planes for about 19 hours. So we thought, man, when they get to Uchee, they are going to be out of it. So we told them to be sure they bring a thin pair of socks and a wool heavy sock. And up there they live, that's easy to get a hold of. And we didn't tell them what we were going to do, but we just told everybody to bring that. So that night when they got in, late in the, well, early evening, I guess it was, we had everybody do this, so that when they would go to bed, we knew they would rest, because this will help you sleep. If anything else, this will help you sleep. She's getting numb? Okay, let me just finish the last sentence. So, the next day, this one woman came up to me, and she said, I have to tell you something. I have been struggling for a couple of years where I have something wrong with my feet. It was like neuropathy, but they never diagnosed it as neuropathy. And she said, I'm miserable all the time. And she said, I did this treatment, and I got up this morning, and I had none of that problem whatsoever. It had all gone away. So we kept questioning her every day, is it still gone? But what she wanted to do there for the first week that she was there, she wanted to do this every night. She didn't want to take a chance that it would come back. But we contacted her later on, and that problem that she had for that length of time never, ever came back. So you never know how God is going to minister to people. And she needed that. She was in misery all the time. And that just, that simple thing like this. And it healed whatever the condition was. Okay. All right, go ahead and stand up. What we're going to try to do is take her arm in range of motion, like this. We want to take her in range of motion, and we want to lift her up. We might have to do this again. What I would suggest for her is to have someone do this on her every day until she can turn her arm back. It works very good because the proprioceptors in the muscle tell the brain where the arm is. And if we can freeze those, the other name for those are called muscle spindle. If we can freeze it, it stops the memory up here. And then we can just take the arm and do whatever we want with it. We can take it back in its range of motion. And how you know that works is what I told you a few minutes ago. If you put your hand behind your back and wiggle your fingers, you don't see it. How does it know? Because the brain told it. So that's what happens with the muscles. And then you do range of motion. After it's good and frozen, she's not helping me. Most of the time, it's numbed it enough that there is no signal from here to the brain. And then we can take the thing and put it in its right range of motion, and it usually stops it. We had a doctor who was already stationed for surgery, and she had a frozen shoulder. I mean frozen. We couldn't do nothing with it. We did ice massage on her for probably a good half hour, till we had it so froze she couldn't even think, really. And after we got it good and froze, we took that arm and it completely broke the frozen shoulder. I mean, not broke it, but it broke the you know, she never had to have the surgery. And we ran into somebody, you know how this world is, you run into people, ran into somebody, her cousin or something came to her Galia in Romania, and we found out that was her cousin, and she said, you know what, she still never had to have that surgery. Her shoulder was good. And we've done it how many times, and it's always worked. But you got to numb it down so that the signal doesn't go up here. So, all righty. Thank you all.